Russia. The Ural Mountains. The border between Europe and Asia. In this region, rivers have unusual names. The Kama River. Kama, in Sanskrit, is the god of love. The Siva River. Siva, in Old Sanskrit, is Shiva, one of the most important deities in Hinduism. The Moksha River. Moksha, in Sanskrit, means liberation from rebirth. And then, the Arya River. Multiple rivers across the steppe carry this name. Arya, in Sanskrit, means noble. These names have puzzled researchers for a century. Words preserved in the ancient, sacred language of India, sitting on the Russian steppe. Linguists argue they are traces of a very old Indo-Iranian language once spoken in this region. If so, the rivers carry names older than the people living beside them today. How old? That is where the story gets strange. In 1903, an Indian scholar named Bal Gangadhar Tilak published a book. He had spent years reading the Rigveda, the oldest Sanskrit text. He noticed something odd. He believed certain passages described an ancient homeland, a place with very long days, very long nights, darkness lasting for months, a sun that circles the horizon without setting. None of this describes India. It describes somewhere much further north. His book, The Arctic Home in the Vedas, argued the ancestors of the Vedic people originally came from the far north. He was pointing in the right direction. The specific location, wrong. The evidence to go further, not yet there. Decades later, a Soviet ethnographer named Svetlana Zharnikova picked up the same thread. She spent years going through geographical records, river names, lake names, village names, across northern Russia and the Urals, systematically, name by name. What she found, hundreds of place names with apparent Sanskrit roots. Not just the Kama and the Siva, rivers called Indra, lakes called Rama. She argued these were traces of an ancient Indo-Iranian population that had lived here before migrating south. Mainstream archaeology dismissed her. Too speculative, too far beyond the evidence, and uncomfortably close to the kind of nationalist mythology that serious scholarship works hard to avoid. She kept working. In 1987, something happened in a river valley in the southern Ural steppe that she had been looking for without knowing it. Soviet engineers were preparing to flood a valley for a reservoir. A dam was already under construction. An aerial survey revealed something unexpected. 2 concentric rings in the earth, large, precise. Archaeologists moved in to excavate before the water came. What they found stopped the dam. A Bronze Age city, around 4,000 years old, built to a precise geometric plan. The outer wall, roughly 160 meters in diameter, timber and packed earth, coated with thick clay. Inside, circular streets paved with wooden logs, drainage channels running beneath them. Every home connected to the drainage system, every home with its own water well. And right next to the well, every house had a metallurgy furnace. Not some houses, every house. The air was drawn from the well into the furnace through an underground channel, using basic thermodynamics. No bellows, no mechanical device. Temperatures reaching 1,200 to 1,500 degrees Celsius. Hot enough to cast bronze in the middle of the steppe. Archaeologists rebuilt the furnace as an experiment. It worked. The city was named Arkaim. The dam was almost finished. News of the discovery appeared in Soviet newspapers in autumn 1987, the era of perestroika and glasnost. For the first time in decades, Soviet citizens could speak publicly. They spoke. Letters flooded into the Central Committee from scientists, teachers, factory workers, students from across the USSR. The director of the Hermitage, Boris Piotrovsky, came out publicly in defense of the site. In the Soviet Union, state infrastructure projects did not get stopped by letter campaigns. This one did. By March 1988, construction was suspended. The dam body was already built, one section away from flooding. That section was never blocked. In April 1991, the site was declared a protected reserve. The letters worked, because the graves inside that valley would eventually change what we knew about the ancient world. Arkaim was not alone. Within a radius of 400 kilometers, archaeologists have found more than 20 similar settlements, built to the same circular plan, the same period, the same culture. Researchers call it the Land of Cities, a Bronze Age civilization covering a vast stretch of the southern Ural steppe that nobody knew existed until the 1980s. Most were found not by digging, but by looking at aerial photographs. Rings in the earth, visible from above. Some are still being identified today. Thousands of artifacts, a picture of daily life that surprised archaeologists. The people of Arkaim were tall, strongly built, light-skinned, light-eyed. The burials reveal a strongly stratified society. Warriors, metallurgical specialists, herders and farmers. Some researchers have noted parallels with the social divisions described centuries later in Vedic tradition. Whether that reflects a direct connection remains debated. Each house held an extended family of 20 to 30 people. Diet: beef, mutton, milk, cheese, porridge, river fish. Women's skeletons show severe wear on knees and spine from a lifetime of grinding grain on stone slabs. Men's upper bodies heavily developed from horses and metalwork. In children's graves, tiny clay pots the size of thimbles, miniature bone harness fittings, toys. Every child buried with full ritual and food for the journey, a full member of the clan from birth. The fire in every furnace was sacred. Before the first copper went in, food and animal bones were thrown into the flame. The descendants of these people would later call the fire god Agni. At Arkaim, the archaeology shows the same ritual. Sacred fire as the channel between humans and gods. The Rigveda describes homes with sacred fire altars, a city built around smoke and bronze. Some researchers have noted the parallels are striking. Whether they reflect direct continuity remains debated. At the center of the city, a square for ceremonies. Horses sacrificed at the solstice, at the death of a warrior, at the new year. The city itself was an observatory. 18 confirmed astronomical alignments. A priest at a specific point on the inner wall, looking through a specific opening in the outer wall, toward a specific hill on the horizon, could fix the exact moment of the summer solstice to within minutes. No instruments, no lenses. The city was the instrument. In the burial mounds, archaeologists found horses and wheels, not heavy solid wooden wheels, spoked wheels, light, fast, built for war. Before the Sintashta evidence, the earliest chariots were believed to have originated in Mesopotamia or the Near East. The Sintashta burial sites are older, the oldest dated to 2026 BCE. These are the earliest known spoked wheel war chariots in the archaeological record. The bone harness fittings, called salia, had sharp spikes on the inner side. One-handed control at full gallop. Two warriors, one driving, one fighting, crashing into infantry at full speed. Researchers built a working reconstruction and drove it across the steppe. It worked, but a chariot is useless if the horse pulling it bolts at the first sound of battle. For decades, scientists debated where modern domestic horses came from. The leading theory pointed to the bowtie culture of Kazakhstan, who kept horses around 5,500 years ago. Then DNA analysis overturned it. The bowtie horses were ancestors of Przewalski's wild horse, not modern domestic ones. In 2021, geneticists analyzed hundreds of ancient horse genomes. Almost all modern domestic horses descend from a single genetic line that emerged among the Sintashta people. They selected for specific traits: ZFPM1, reduced stress responses; calmer under pressure; GSDMC, a stronger spine to carry weight. Within a few centuries, this lineage replaced most wild horse populations from Portugal to China. Every horse that has ever been ridden traces back here. Arkaim existed for about 150 to 200 years. Then the people left. One theory: they had cut down all the forests for smelting fuel. Their cattle had destroyed the pastures. The land was exhausted, but they did not simply leave. Before they walked out, they packed everything. Then they burned the city. Coal layer analysis showed the entire city ignited simultaneously, from multiple points at once. Not a fire spreading from one house. All of it at the same moment. Clay-covered timber does not catch fire easily. To burn the way it burned, the residents had to stack dry brushwood, straw and birch bark against the walls from the inside. No human remains were found inside the walls. Everyone was already outside when the first fire was lit. The Sintashta were fire worshippers. Burning the city before leaving may have been a ritual act, returning it to the sacred element. They migrated south, across Central Asia, into Iran, into northern India. They brought their chariots, their fire rituals, their language, and they left behind a ghost town, hidden in the grass. Geneticists extracted DNA from the Sintashta skeletons. They found a specific genetic marker, haplogroup R1A-Z93. This lineage is today most strongly represented among the upper castes of northern India, including Brahmin priests, and among populations in Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Iran. A lineage traceable through steppe populations into South and Central Asia. 4,000 years of movement, visible in living people today. Traditions carried by these migrants contributed to the culture that later produced the Rigveda. Their fire rituals contributed to what became Zoroastrianism. Some researchers have noted striking parallels between Arkaim's layout and descriptions of sacred settlements in the Rigveda and the Avesta. Whether that reflects direct continuity is still debated. The Sintashta answer is solid. The genetics, the archaeology, the linguistics, they agree. But the DNA also shows that the Sintashta themselves came from somewhere. Their genome is nearly identical to the corded ware culture of Central and Eastern Europe. Before that, the Yamnaya culture of the Pontic-Caspian steppe. Before that, the haplogroup R1A, formed somewhere in southern Siberia approximately 20,000 years ago. Arkaim is not the beginning. It is a moment in a longer story whose start we have not yet found. The Sintashta people left Russia thousands of years ago. Their fortresses decayed, their descendants changed. Modern populations moved in, speaking a different tongue. But the names of the waters stayed: the Kama, the Siva, the Moksha. New populations kept using the old names because they didn't know what else to call them. Some linguists now argue these names make sense in a way they didn't before Arkaim. Rivers keep their names longer than almost anything else. Names still on the map, a city still in the steppe, fragments of a world that was larger than we knew and older than we thought. Through archaeology, language, and memory, pieces of it keep surfacing.